We know that in Phase 2 of Kingdom Hearts, Mickey has been tasked by Yen Sid to search for clues about the ancient masters in Scarlet Asylum. I already made a video about who those ancient masters actually are and what the other world they crossed over into actually is, and I was suggesting that the ancient masters are actually the Union leaders rather than the foretellers, and the other world that they crossed over into was the Daybreak town, not Quadradum. Now, if you want to know more about that theory, then you can check out the full video. Now, this theory is building off of that one, but the focus of this video is going to be regarding one of the strangest moments in Union so far, a moment that I think a lot of us have forgotten about, and it's a moment that may in some way be an indicator of where Mickey's trip to Scarlet Asylum might possibly lead him. We know that Mickey is the one that is now going to Scarlet Asylum to find out about the ancient masters who were known to cross over into another world, as Yen Sid said. If the ancient masters are indeed the Union leaders, then the other world they crossed over into would be the Daybreak town. And there is actually some Union content from quite a while back that strongly supports this theory, but also leads to some new ones. See, a while back during Union, there was a very bizarre and strange quest where the player meets Donald and Goofy after their gummy ship crashes in Daybreak Town. They ask for the player to assist them by gathering gummy blocks to rebuild it by taking them back from all the Heartless that stole them. Donald notices that the player has a keyblade and asks them why they have one. After getting the rundown on the matter, Donald is confused about these masked figures in white robes and Cherokees. Now, the masked figures they're referring to are of course the foretellers, and of course they wouldn't know about them because, as I said in my video about the ancient masters, nobody past the Union time besides Xehanort and maybe Ericus seems to know about the foretellers. Oh, and actually there's two other people, but I'm gonna save that for another video. Now, about halfway through this quest, the player encounters some Heartless, and in the middle of the fight, Mickey appears from out of nowhere and helps them out, and the first thing he mentions is that there's darkness in this world too, and then immediately he notices that the player has a Keyblade, realizing that there are indeed Keyblade wielders in this world. He then says that it seems he took a surprise journey to a new world, which I think is a very interesting choice of words considering his task is to look into another world. And what's interesting to note as well is that Mickey is in the actual Daybreak Town here. He's not in the Daybreak Town because this event took place well before Union became a thing, well before the Keyblade War happened, well before the Union leaders crossed over into the Daybreak Town. So even though he has somehow ended up in another world, and even though that other world is still Daybreak Town, it's not the Daybreak Town, which I think is very interesting because it still connects with his task of having to find out about another world, because from his perspective, Daybreak Town is another world. At the time when Mickey's around as a Keyblade wielder, Daybreak Town is gone. Scarlet Asylum is in its place, so he shouldn't be able to get to Daybreak Town because it's long gone, it's been destroyed by the time he's around. But clearly, somehow, he's there. So anyway, Mickey then asks the player if he's seen his friends Donald and Goofy, and the player explains that their ship crashed and was destroyed and that he's helping them rebuild it. Mickey thanks him and says it's lucky that he landed there, but he never would have made it without the aid of his co-pilots Chip and Dale. Now, after a little friendly banter between the three about Mickey not being able to use the brakes properly, Mickey mentions something very interesting. He says he needs to look into something. This is a vague line that originally seemed a little out of place because if this is a new world and he accidentally ended up in it, what exactly would he be looking into? But we'll get back to this in a moment. He then asks the player to take Chip and Dale to where Donald and Goofy are whilst he goes off to look into whatever he needs to look into. Now, this part is very important to my theory. Right after the player leaves, Mickey says that the Star Shard wasn't what led him to this world and he wonders what exactly is going on. And then right after this, and this is very subtle, but right after this, the camera pans up and we see the legs of someone in a black coat on a roof overlooking Mickey. Or at least it seems like someone in a black coat. But we're gonna get to that in a minute. Now, the quest ends when you finally have enough gummy parts to rebuild the gummy ship, and then they have to quickly take off, otherwise the ship will break apart again. But they're waiting for Mickey. Mickey finally turns up and he says they're all going to return home to their world before they fly away. Cherokee then appears remarking that they were a noisy bunch, and then says, so he's the king. And that brings an end to what is one of the strangest moments in Union so far. A moment that now we may be able to make a bit more sense out of. So firstly, how did Mickey even get to Daybreak Town? Well, the star shard that Mickey refers to is the same star-shaped crystal that he got back in Birth by Sleep from Yen Sid in order to travel between different worlds. But as we see in Birth by Sleep, he doesn't know how to use it, so it activates randomly, sending him to random worlds. But when Mickey meets Ventus, he suggests that the star shard maybe takes him where he's meant to go. So you'd think that maybe the star shard is how he got there. But he explicitly says that it wasn't the star shard, which means something else brought him to Daybreak Town. Now Mickey says that he doesn't believe the star shard is what brought him to Daybreak Town, but if you look at the way in which he ends up in Daybreak Town, the way he kind of bounces around as like a star, it's exactly the same thing that happens in Birth by Sleep when the star shard transports him somewhere randomly. And in Birth by Sleep, when he's transported somewhere, he usually ends up saving someone, such as Ventus, or helping Aqua with protecting Kairi. And of course, when he appears in Daybreak Town, he is saving the player. So he says it's not the star shard, but looking at it on the surface, it looks pretty much the same. So maybe he's wrong, and maybe the star shard is somehow what actually brought him there, but maybe it wasn't the star shard by itself. Maybe it's the star shard in conjunction with the Book of Prophecies or something else. I don't know. Now what I would have believed is that the way he got there or appeared there is the same way all the other Disney characters in Union have appeared there, which is by being projections from the future made by the Book of Prophecies. But the issue with this is that firstly, the worlds made by the Book of Prophecies shouldn't have any interactivity with Daybreak Town at all. And most certainly, the inhabitants of those worlds shouldn't be able to enter Daybreak Town, and they never have. Even with the current Wreck-It Ralph storyline, that world is specifically causing issues because it didn't come from the Book of Prophecies and it was forced to connect with the data Daybreak Town by someone else. Who connected it, we still don't know yet, but I'm sure we'll find it out soon enough. Also, Daybreak Town is the only place that's not supposed to be a projection. So how exactly did they end up in Daybreak Town if they're just projections of the Book of Prophecies? Now I know Heartless have been able to appear there, but how did they get there in a gummy ship? Why would they crash land if they're projections? And why would they be able to just fly away and leave if they're just projections? What's also interesting is that Chirruphy seemed to know who Mickey was, or at least he knew about the king. So how he knew about that, I don't know, but for some reason he knew about that and he didn't seem to think it was too crazy that he was there, which implies that in that time Mickey is known somehow. I really doubt Nomura would place so much focus and mystery around this little moment if they were just projections of the future, which means that whatever Mickey was doing there is probably going to be quite important to the future story of Kingdom Hearts. So even though I can't be certain how he got there, I can be certain he had an objective there. Mickey says he needs to look into something, and what he's looking into is never revealed to us, but we see him pondering how he got there, and even he is confused about what's going on. And then for some reason, someone in a black coat is watching over him. At least it seems like someone in a black coat, right? Wrong. It was actually revealed by someone on the Kingdom Hearts Insider forums years ago that the mysterious black coat person that appears in this scene is not actually someone in a black coat at all. In fact, when they went and looked into the event files and pulled up the full image, it was revealed that it is not someone in a black coat, but actually it is the foreteller, Envy. Now why Envy would be standing there watching over Mickey, I don't know, but that's very interesting. And what's also curious to consider is that Envy has returned alongside the other foretellers to the present day. So is she in some shape or form going to be responsible for how Mickey ends up in Daybreak Town? Or maybe the foretellers in general are going to somehow be responsible for that. But also, it kind of raises the question of why did Nomura hide that it was her watching over Mickey? Unless you went in to find the actual photo from the game files, you wouldn't know it was her. You would have just assumed it was someone in a black coat. That was obviously done on purpose. This also is why I don't believe Mickey is just a projection from the Book of Prophecies, because as I said, why would Nomura go out of his way to create all this mystery if it's just meant to be some random non-canon Easter egg event that we're supposed to just not really think about or has no significance? Because that scene cuts there and the next we see of Mickey is him boarding the gummy ship, we have no idea what he went to look into or what happened during his time in Daybreak Town. So that's a very big gap in our knowledge, and it's a very important gap as well. Mickey obviously found whatever he was looking for, but what that means we're not sure. Does he meet with the foretellers? Does he just meet Envy? Does he maybe meet Luciu? Does he meet the Master of Masters maybe? Or maybe he doesn't meet anybody and he gets his information some other way. If Mickey's mission is to find out about the ancient masters who crossed over into another world, then when he went to Scala, or perhaps on his way to Scala, something might have happened that led to him crossing over into Daybreak Town. Now when he says he needs to go and look into something, it could be that that something is the ancient masters. Now this is interesting because if it is the ancient masters, in this Daybreak Town he's in, that would be the foretellers. Now in my video where I said the ancient masters are not the foretellers, I still stand by that because there is no way in hell Yensid knew about the foretellers, and there is no way that when he's saying that they crossed over into another world, he's referring to them. Nobody knows that. Not even the union leaders know what happened to them. No one knows what happened to them. So the only people he could be referring to are the union leaders. But when Mickey goes to search for the ancient masters, aka the union leaders, he may somehow have ended up actually finding the original union leaders, which is the foretellers. That would be a very interesting way of actually making the ancient masters be the foretellers, even though that isn't who they were actually supposed to be looking for. But it could mean that he meets another foreteller such as Ava, who tells him about the dandelions and about her mission to put these kids in another world, in the Daybreak Town, and maybe that's the information he needs. And another thing to consider is that it would make quite a lot of sense if this took place after Melody of Memory, because that would explain why Donald and Goofy are with him. The only other time where they would have been with Mickey is before Kingdom Hearts 1, and I mean right before Kingdom Hearts 1, because they weren't with him in Birth by Sleep. But if that was the case, then that would mean Mickey has been withholding knowledge of Daybreak Town and everything that he saw there this entire time. And Donald and Goofy actually, because they were also there, and they did hear from the player about figures in white robes with masks as well as Chirrufis. So did all three of them just not say anything this entire time? I mean, I guess it's possible, but I highly doubt it. Which means that in some way he must have arrived there from the future. Now I really have no idea exactly how this happened, but it's the only answer that really fits. And now with Melody of Memory, it makes perfect sense why he would be there. And I mean, is it really a coincidence that his mission is to search for the ancient masters who crossed over into another world, and then he's randomly ended up in another world, and that world is Daybreak Town, where the ancient masters, whether that's the union leaders or the foretellers, would be? And is it a coincidence that he goes off in search for something and we still don't know what he went looking for, which means there's a gap that needs to be explained, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be explained at some point. I don't think all of it's just a coincidence. So whatever we get next with Mickey, whether that's another movie or some gameplay segments in the next game, I'm fairly confident that it will reveal to us exactly what this very peculiar scene in Union was actually all about. But anyway, that's all I've got to say for my theory on this subject. I didn't expect this video to be so long, but I wanted to kind of summarize what exactly happened in this quest, because it was from quite a while back towards the start of the Union storyline. So I thought it'd be good to go over it because I don't think as many people are familiar with it, and also because there was just so many different things that came up. I just wanted to make sure I covered everything and got it all across in this one video. I know it's been a while since I dropped any theory videos. I think it's been like about 3 weeks or so, but there's going to be more theories to come. This theory video specifically was actually meant to come out quite a while ago, to be honest with you, but I just got caught up with different things. But I will tell you this right now, I've got some pretty interesting theories to come, some things that you may not have really thought of, or some things that I think some of you have probably considered before, but I'm going to delve a bit deeper into. And one of those things I'm going to be talking about is Kairi's grandmother, because we need to talk about that woman. We need to talk about her. So if you'd like to see that theory, for example, then I highly suggest you stick around and hit the subscribe button and the bell notification so you're notified when I drop that video, as well as any of my other Kingdom Hearts theories and videos in general. Of course, if you have your own thoughts on this really strange, vague, crazy event and scene that happened in Union, be sure to leave them in the comments below. Do you think Mickey might have time traveled? Do you think it was indeed the Star Shard and he's wrong? Do you think he is just a projection of the Book of Prophecies? Do you think all of this is just a random event Nomura threw in and it's not canon and it has absolutely no significance? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to hit the like button. I know this was a bit of a longer video, but I appreciate you guys for making it this far and for listening. Anyway, my name is NextGenNovelist, and that's all I've got to say, and I'm out. Peace.